Hello YouTube, I'm Andrew Does Hair. You can find my work on Instagram at Andrew Does Hair. This is Justin. I saw him standing in line at a grocery store and I approached him and said, "Hey, you look really cool. Can I cut your hair?" What he said to me is, "I'm trying to grow it out right now, but when I give up on it, I'll let you know." On this day, he let me know. Justin stated that he doesn't like having fresh, clean haircuts. He kind of avoids getting his haircut. He plays in a band. He's got that look, just like band guy look. And he's told me in the past he's gotten haircuts that are like so tidy that they just don't feel right for weeks or months at a time. What I want to do today is something that's actually kind of hard for me. And I'm going to do some kind of sloppy, messy, like I do like to do a lot of texture. That's like my thing. But sometimes I watch people cut hair and they're not measuring things. They're not pulling things to specific angles. They're just like slide cutting and chopping and freehanding the whole haircut. And I'm going to do that quite a bit today, which is, like I said, kind of hard for me to do. I want to measure everything. I want to be precise with everything. But it's kind of like if you want to get a Jackson Pollock style painting, you're not going to do that by carefully putting paint on the canvas. You have to, at some point, like fling some paint. And so if I want to get a haircut that looks like some thrashed, like, dude, I got a haircut a couple months ago. I went on tour. I forgot about my hair. If I want it to leave like that on day one, I'm going to have to do some techniques that are a little bit haphazard. So to begin with, working in the front here, I want to set a guide in the center of the head for the fringe. And before I do that, I measure twice to see where that length is going to hit before I cut anything. I am going to put some structure in the front and the top of the haircut here because I want to make sure that it's going to hit key points around his face. What I'm doing now that I've established that center guide is I'm bringing hairs from the outside to the inside to be cut. And these will be progressively longer as the hair falls down because they're traveling further to be cut. This way he won't have a straight across fringe like Lloyd Christmas. I did that on the other side as well. I just didn't get it on camera. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is continue this guide straight down the middle of the head, cutting it round to the shape of the head, essentially like a grown out buzz cut. This is not square, flat to the ground, or triangle or anything like that. I'm just cutting it all one length front to back. And what I'm doing here, as opposed to what I did in the front, is each section I pull up is using the previous guide as a section, and I'm pulling the hair straight out off the head. And this is going to cause each section to be the same length as the previous section, which was the same length as the previous section, as opposed to in the front, the hairs were getting longer and longer near the outside sections. This is not doing that here. It's going to be round, kind of match the shape of the head. So now working on the sides, I'm going to take this entire panel on the right side and just condensed cut it all at once. I'm going to pull it up and use the corner of the fringe as a guide to know kind of where to cut it. And after that, I'm kind of just going to leave it alone. That's it. The side is cut. And do the same thing on the other side, hopefully about the same way. And once that's done, we have, kind of the front of a haircut, but still quite a bit of a mullet in the back. He did mention that he likes having length and weight in the back. He's like, I don't want like a mullet, but he wears a hat a lot and he likes when the hair flips out around the back of the hat. And so I'm going to like really heavily layer the back here by kind of pulling the hair up to like 45 degrees out and cutting it flat to the floor. But this is going to maintain a lot of length on the bottom, a lot more than what we need. And that's going to be the part that I'm going to go in and kind of freehand. I could have very easily pulled this out and done some measured, focused, like detailed, careful layers. But instead, I just opted to comb everything down and just start slide cutting. Now, if I had a razor on me on this day, I would probably razor cut this. That's a pretty common technique with the razors, to take chunks like this. And sometimes when I do this, I don't even have a comb in my hand. Like I don't want any straight lines anywhere. I'm just going to do some like slide cutting from pretty deep into the hair to out of the hair. And this is going to cause those little ends to want to flip out. You can see them kind of starting to do it on their own already. And so the back of this haircut, if you were like, hey, what shape is that? I don't know, man. Like I just started freehanding it. And if I saw a piece that stuck out or looked crooked or didn't sit right, I would go in and cut it. So this is the part that I was saying, like, it makes me uncomfortable when I watch people cut hair this way. But I realized there are a lot of very successful hair cutters who have this sort of approach. And there's got to be something to it. And to me, it's really fun because it's like, okay, I throw the rules out the window and I just cut what I feel like needs to be cut. And then I'll move the hair and I'll cut it some more. And when I think it's done and when I think it looks good, I'll blow dry the hair. So with his hair, because we like the wave, we like it flipping around, we like it moving a lot. I'm not going to use a brush because that would make the hair too straight. It might look like, flat ironed emo hair or something if we did that. So I'm just going to move the hair a lot, high heat and high power until it looks, kind of jagged and texturized, so a little bit past dry. Once the hair is smooth, I'm gonna go back in, and anything that I cut blunt to kind of make sure I had some structure in there, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna remove the bluntness. I'm just gonna do some deep point cutting all throughout, pretty much all over the top and the sides of the head. Again, anything that I club cut or blunt cut before, I'm just gonna go back and maintain the shape. And I'm kind of checking my work as I'm doing this. If I pull something up and there's not a straight line there, I did something wrong. But then if I set it down and it's still a straight line, I did something wrong yet again. Doing these deep point cuts here are going to allow the hair to move a lot. Like, we're just adding a bunch of air in there, a lot of movement, a lot of texture. It's gonna make it look thrashed and jagged. You know, as I'm working, if something jumps out, if something's like, hey, that shouldn't be there, I'll just chop it off real quick. It's very much like wiggle the hair, look at what it's doing, like, oh, look at that one right there. Let's get rid of that. That shouldn't be there. I know some purists, they might watch this kind of technique and be like, oh my gosh, how can you do that? But it's like I said, if you want to get a little bit of a haphazard result, you have to do a little bit of a haphazard technique. You can't carefully paint a splatter painting. You have to splatter paint to do that. And I think the result we got here so far, it looks pretty freaking good. It looks like a guy who's in a band who didn't just get a haircut. And that's exactly what we were going for. So to style it, I'm just going to noogie in a little bit of product, mostly at the root here, and then shake the hair around. And from this point, like, the less he does to it for the next week, the better it'll look. For my shoot today, I'm leaning back on my Canon 70D. I've been loving this thing. It was dirt cheap. Today I paired it with a Neewer Q4. And essentially, like, I'm trying to really simplify and streamline and cheap out on my gear. I'm going with like a single light setup here. I'm trying to shoot using the back screen here, which for years I was like, that's a no-no. Pros don't do that. But I'm like, you know what? Let me just see what it feels like to shoot that way. I know a lot of newer photographers only like to shoot that way. A lot of hairstylists I see only shoot that way. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's something to it. And I have to admit, it's really fun to touch the screen to take a picture. So, you know, I'm trying things out of my norm as well here. But the results we got, I think, are pretty good. Like I said, we wanted him to look like a band guy who maybe got a haircut, maybe didn't get a haircut, maybe is in the middle of tour. I think we achieved it. This is what I grew up looking at. This is what we looked like back then.